You followed the script. You listened when they said, "Be emotionally available." You softened your voice, read the relationship books, learned how to validate her feelings. You paid for the dates. You walked on eggshells. You were, according to every modern rule, the perfect man. And then one day she said, "I don't know. I just don't feel a spark." That moment hit like a freight train. Not because you lost her, but because you realized something terrifying. You never really had her. You had a role, a mask, a part in a play that someone else wrote. And for all your effort, all your performance, you still got written out in the third act. If this feels familiar, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're waking up. There's a silent war being waged against your consciousness, not by evil villains or grand conspiracies, but by something much more dangerous. Expectations. You're expected to be useful, agreeable, safe, non-threatening, endlessly adaptable, in short, easy to manage. But here's the twist. Even when you play by the rules, they change the game. Be strong but not too masculine. Lead but only when invited. Provide but don't expect loyalty. The result? A generation of men burned out, bitter and broken. Not because they were bad men, but because they tried to win a rigged game. So what's the answer? It's not to fight harder. It's not to hate women. It's not to become a cold shell of yourself. The answer is to walk away from the script. Not in anger, but in clarity. Not with revenge, but with vision. Because the truth is, you were never meant to play a part. You were meant to become something real, and that's what Stoicism offers. Not a trick, not a tactic, but a foundation, a way of seeing life that no one can manipulate because it's yours, completely, unapologetically, yours. Let's begin. There's a performance happening all around us, so seamless, so embedded in daily life, that most people never question it. We call it femininity. But what if what we've come to know as the feminine isn't a truth, but a script? From the quiet, blushing maiden in Victorian novels to today's fierce, unapologetic boss babe, the female identity has never stayed still. It morphs. It updates. Like a software patch, each cultural moment downloading a new version of what a woman should be. One generation teaches women to be docile and pure. The next tells them to be bold and sexually liberated. Then comes the wave of corporate empowerment, complete with hashtags, stilettos, and LinkedIn bios that read like brand campaigns. And through it all, men clap. Not because they understand, but because they were trained to. You were taught to applaud the good girl, then the cool girl, then the independent girl who doesn't need a man, except to move furniture, fix her Wi-Fi, and pick up the check. You weren't invited to question any of it, only to react, to perform your part in her performance, to nod when she shifts roles, to chase when she withdraws, to lead when it's useful, and to disappear when it's not. And here's the twist. She's not faking it. She believes the role too. Because no one told her it was a script either. So now you have two people, each acting out roles they didn't create, each hoping the other will finally give them something real. But how can anything real grow in a theater? Men are not innocent. Here, we've been conditioned, sometimes even comforted, by the illusion. It's easier to adore the idea of a woman than to face the reality that she's just as lost, just as shaped by outside forces, just as terrified of not being enough. Bought the myth that the woman who admires us, who laughs at our jokes, who calls us her rock, is showing us her true self. But often she's just showing us the version of herself she's been told we want. The nurturing goddess, the edgy artist, the wellness witch with a crystal collection and 3 exes named Kyle. And so we give applause, not to who she is, but to who she thinks she has to be. This is what Marcus Aurelius warned us about when he said, "Don't waste the rest of your life worrying about what others think of you, because you are not what they think." The Stoic path begins when you stop clapping, when you stop trying to decode the performance, and start asking deeper questions. Who is she without the role? And more importantly, who are you when you're no longer reacting to her? Because real masculinity doesn't live in applause, it lives in awareness. Let's rewind the tape. Picture the 1950s housewife, smiling in pearls, apron tied tight, perfectly timed roast in the oven. To many, she was the golden standard of femininity, gentle, nurturing, loyal. But that image wasn't organic. It was engineered. After World War II, governments needed to move women out of factories and back into kitchens. The propaganda was subtle, but relentless. Movies, advertisements, pop psychology, all whispering the same message. Real women stay home, and many believed it, because they had to. In a world that punishes defiance and rewards conformity, belief becomes survival. But belief born of pressure isn't truth. It's bad faith. Sartre called it that. Bad faith. When we convince ourselves we're making a free choice, when in reality, we're just afraid of what freedom demands. Responsibility. The 1950s housewife wasn't just a woman. She was a product, marketed to men as a reward, and to women as a purpose. But as with all marketing, the illusion cracked. Cue the 1960s. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. Now the ideal woman was fierce, independent, sexually liberated. Same stage, different costume, but the pressure was the same, only louder. Bras burned for cameras, slogans printed in neon. This was liberation, yes, but it was also another script, and once again men were told to applaud. She's not just your wife now. She's your equal, your rival, your muse, your critic. Don't question it. Just adapt. Just clap. But here's the Stoic question no one asked. If freedom means becoming whoever you choose, then why does every generation hand women a new uniform? You see, the tragedy isn't that roles changed. It's that they never stopped being roles. One script said, "Be small to be loved." The next said, "Be bold to be respected." But both were still scripts, crafted, sold, enforced. And for many women, the pressure became internalized, not because they're manipulative, but because they've been manipulated too. When society rewards performance, authenticity becomes risky. And so the modern woman often plays a part she didn't audition for, smiling wide, sounding strong, chasing perfection, all while silently asking, "Is this really me?" Bad faith doesn't discriminate. It's not just her struggle, it's ours too, because men who applaud without thinking end up living without knowing. The Stoic path doesn't blame the performer. It exits the play. It asks, if she's not free yet, are you? Because freedom isn't about rewriting her script. It's about burning your own. In the ancient world, marriage was a pact, a bond forged not from romance, but from responsibility. You gave, you protected, you built, not for a spark, but for legacy. Fast forward to now, and the game has changed. Marriage still exists, sure. But beneath the vows and the filtered wedding photos lies a silent transaction. Love is no longer about connection. It's about leverage. Who brings more? Who gives less? Who has options? Who's replaceable? And nowhere is this clearer than in modern dating. Dating apps were supposed to bring people together, but they turned intimacy into inventory. Swipe left, swipe right, shop for humans like you're scrolling through sneakers. What was once sacred, time, attention, affection, is now currency. And men, they're often the ones paying the price. A man gives his time, his money, his emotional labor. Not because he's weak, but because he thinks that's what good men do. But the truth is, in this marketplace of masked intentions, his generosity isn't cherished. It's exploited. And when he finally realizes that love, once again, has been replaced by performance, he begins to doubt not just women, but the entire idea of intimacy. This isn't bitterness, it's awakening. Because when affection becomes a commodity and connection becomes negotiation, something sacred is lost. You see, men were told that love was earned through sacrifice, that if they just gave enough, provided enough, endured enough, they'd be chosen. But love doesn't work like that. Not in a world where the script keeps changing. One minute you're told to be stable. The next, you're too boring. You open up. You're not a challenge. You stay reserved. You're emotionally unavailable. It's a rigged game, and the only winning move is to stop playing, not in anger, not in retreat, but in clarity. Because here's the Stoic truth. Love isn't something you win. It's something you recognize, and recognition only happens between two people who've stopped performing. So instead of trying to prove your worth to a system that doesn't value you, focus on becoming someone whose worth isn't up for negotiation. Someone who doesn't barter identity for affection, who doesn't trade dignity for attention, someone who walks with quiet confidence, not because he's chasing love, but because he's anchored in it. Not in her, but in himself. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Men aren't just victims of the script. We've helped write it. Somewhere along the way, we confused endurance with value. The more we suffer, the more we serve, the more we believe we've earned love. So we become emotional punching bags. We take on jobs we hate. We give more, expect less, and call that maturity. We silence ourselves to keep the peace. We suppress desire to appear safe. We endure rejection after rejection and call it strength. Take Tom, for example. He dated a woman who said she wanted a stable man. He worked 70-hour weeks, paid for everything, never raised his voice. 6 months in, she told him he felt emotionally distant. So he opened up, cried once, shared his fears. She ghosted him 2 weeks later. Tom didn't break down. He blamed himself. He thought, maybe if I'd tried harder. But love doesn't reward sacrifice. Not in a world where affection is transactional. It rewards alignment. And alignment starts with truth. The truth is, men weren't chasing love. We were chasing permission. Permission to feel, to be, to belong. And we thought pain was the toll. We handed over our dignity not because we had to, but because we were told that's what real men do. The culture echoed it. Be her rock. Don't complain. Take it like a man. So we took it. Until we disappeared. But Stoicism offers a different path. Not escape. Not bitterness. A mirror. It doesn't say, she was wrong. It asks, were you honest with yourself? Because true strength isn't silent suffering. It's self-possession. It's being able to say, I will give, but not. To buy love, I will stay, but not abandon myself to do it. The moment you stop trading pain for purpose is the moment you become untouchable. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started living. And there is nothing more powerful than a man who no longer needs to be needed, but chooses to be whole. A man who doesn't beg for approval, who doesn't lose himself in pursuit of someone else. A man who understands that love is not a currency, and he is not for sale. The moment of awakening isn't loud, it's quiet. It's that night you stop scrolling, stop chasing, and ask a dangerous question. What if I never win the game because the game was rigged? That's when it begins. You stop performing. You burn the handbook titled, How to Please Women, because you realize it was never written for your freedom. It was a leash disguised as a love letter. You've been trained to earn affection by shrinking, to win approval by disappearing. But now, finally, you see through the lie. This is what the Stoics meant by freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to stop lying to yourself. And from that clarity, sovereignty is born. So what does that look like? It's built on 3 pillars. Instinct. Modern life told you to suppress it. Be soft, be agreeable, be manageable. But instinct is not your enemy. It's your compass. It's the fire that makes you chase greatness, fight for meaning, protect what matters. The sovereign man doesn't let instinct rule him. He hones it like a blade. He doesn't explode. He directs. Frame. This is your unshakable center. Most men float. They change their opinions to match a woman's mood, a boss's tone, a tweet's popularity. But frame is different. It's the ability to hold your values like granite, to walk away from anything that insults your soul. Frame says, I don't need you to agree. I need me to be honest. 3. Legacy. The system wants you distracted, scared of rejection, addicted to validation. Because men who are building don't beg. They're too busy crafting things that outlive them. Legacy isn't about empire. It's about alignment. The kind of impact you leave when no one's clapping. A business, a child, a philosophy, something that whispers, he lived with intention. Sovereignty isn't loud. It's not rebellion. It's quiet strength. The calm in a world screaming for your attention. No one will give it to you. You must choose it. Not once, but every single day. Because in a world full of performers, the real man is the one who never auditions. Let me tell you a story. Ben was the textbook, good guy, held doors, remembered anniversaries, listened more than he spoke. He wasn't just in love, he was devoted. He bent over backward to be everything she said she wanted. Supportive, sensitive, safe. And for a while, it worked. Until one night over dinner she looked at him and said, "I just don't feel a spark anymore. No fight, no betrayal, just a quiet exit." And Ben was left staring at his half-eaten steak, wondering what went wrong. He did everything right. But that was the problem. He lived for her validation. He performed instead of lived. That night, Ben didn't rage. He didn't spiral. He did something more dangerous. He went silent. Then he went inward. He stopped chasing, stopped performing, started rebuilding. He read, trained, traveled. He sat with his discomfort instead of escaping it. He stopped asking, "What do women want?" and started asking, "What kind of man am I becoming?" 1 year later, Ben wasn't just back. He was unrecognizable. He didn't need anyone's permission to speak his mind. He didn't need female attention to feel worthy. He didn't resent women. He just no longer needed their approval to function. That's what the system fears. Not angry men, not loud men, but indifferent men. Men who no longer beg, who no longer perform, who no longer build their lives around being liked, because those men are dangerous, not to women, but to the entire structure built on male compliance. History has seen them before. The Stoics in ancient Rome, the Spartans who trained for war by embracing hardship, the samurai who lived and died by their code, the pioneers who built civilizations from nothing. These men didn't ask, "Am I desirable?" They asked, "Am I aligned?" And with that question, they carved out empires, internally and externally. So here's the choice. Stay in the performance, or burn the stage and build something real. Because when enough men stop chasing applause and start chasing purpose, the world won't know how to contain it. Not through shame, not through mockery, not through silence. It's not rebellion. It's not hatred. It's clarity, and clarity is contagious.